Hey, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Frank About Health. The date is Thursday, September 4th, and today it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Otho Eskin. We are going to discuss during this episode his history, his career, his literary works. He is an author, and he was a military foreign service officer in his previous career. And we're going to swing that towards the topic of healthy aging through creativity and reinvention. Now, this is a unique guest in the following way. Not once have I ever had a guest that was not a healthcare official, provider, had a healthcare story to share, but rather they lived a very independent life, in this case, the military, as well as an author and playwright currently, and at the right young age of 94. And that in itself creates a healthcare story, a story of inspiration, a story of an individual who managed through, I guess you could consider it disruption. People say that when you reach a certain age, certain things go. But this man, as you will learn in the next hour, has been able to keep things cooking and burning and narrating, among other things. So I think this is definitely a very unique episode that must be shared because, as you will also learn, a lot of what he writes about mirrors what's going on in our current social system, especially in the area of healthcare. So, for that reason, I will definitely issue my disclaimer. What you will hear are not the talking points or views of Frank About Health or of talkradio.nyc, but rather fictional interpretations through Otho Eskin and through his works, which we will discuss. And simultaneously, they are point of views that you can use to reference for yourself, hopefully learn from, and try to mitigate through the disruption that we continue to see in our media as well as in our healthcare. That all being said, let me give you a brief bio on Otho Eskin, and then I will introduce him and let him speak. Otho Eskin is a lawyer and former diplomat, served in the U.S. Army and in the United States Foreign Service, was vice chairman of the U.S. delegation to the United Nations Conference on the Law of the Sea, participated in the negotiations on the International Space Station, was principal U.S. negotiator of several international agreements on seabed minima
Mining.
mining. I apologize. Okay. I need to get my contacts back in. And was the U.S. representative to the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. Eskin is active in the theater scene and is a playwright whose work has appeared in New York, Washington, D.C., and in Europe. Very impressive background. So, Otho, welcome to Frank About Health. And I would like you to just introduce yourself the way if we were meeting right now on in Washington, let's say.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, delighted to meet you virtually, if not in person.
Right.
I think you've told at least the bare bones about me. My career was I'm a lawyer by training, but my career was in the United States Foreign Service. I was a diplomat for 20 some years, serving in Washington and in various capitals around the world. I had a brief military stint. I was in the army, and but I have been I'm basically until some years ago I was a career diplomat. When I retired, I just I wanted to continue to be very active. I am by nature a kind of an active, proactive person. So
Yes.
I had always been interested in writing, and I had been interested in the theater, going to the theater when I was in college. So when I was retired and had time on my hands, and I did not want to just sit at home,
Right.
I began writing plays, and I wrote probably altogether, I'm not sure, lost count, probably a dozen plays, some of which have been produced in Washington, D.C., some in New York, and some in Europe, and actually in Australia and in Russia, of all places. That was a long time ago.
Right. Right.
Uh, it was. and but I really loved the writing, the theater. It was it got me to be involved with a lot of people. Of course, the director, the actors, the stagehands, the people who put up the lights, and all of that was a very active social setting, and I enjoyed that as well as doing the actual writing of the plays and then seeing them on stage, which was sometimes scary, particularly on opening night. You don't know to expect. You have no idea what the audience is going to be like and whether they're going to react. Everybody's polite in my world, but you never know.
Correct.
Then when I did that for some years and then decided I wanted to stretch a little bit and try a different kind of writing. When I was in high school, I wrote science fiction, short stories, none of which were published, well, one or two, but probably mediocre stories. But I wanted to try something a little more challenging, so I decided to write genre novels. In this case, novels about exciting events that are going on in the world. So I wrote. I've written now four of those novels. They were then published and distributed around the world, or at least around the United States.
Yes.
So and that's a totally different world. Writing novels is a solitary occupation, but once they're done, you can once again get engaged with other people. You have the editor, the publisher, the people who do the promotion. There's an active team of people surrounding you, advising me and complaining if I don't do something right, or complimenting me when I do something right. So it's a very active um, a world that I engaged in. I should
Yeah.
say that when I retired, I knew that I was going to want to do something active. I'm a proactive person. So
Yes.
in addition to writing plays and novels, when I first got out of the Foreign Service, I did all kinds of things. I learned how to fly a plane. Um, I
Wow.
have not continued that because that's a very expensive hobby.
I can
But
imagine.
I really enjoyed it, flying over the countryside and hoping I can find the airport on my way back. I
How
learned how to
old were
play
you
the
when you learned to
piano.
fly?
Not very well, but I learned the piano. I studied lessons in art. As you can see, I did all kinds of things, uh, some of which I've sort of let go. I've gotten to the point where I no longer have a piano in the house, and I no longer fly a plane, which is probably just as well for the other pilots in the country. But I I like being active. I like being challenged every day. I like being when I wake up in the morning, remember why I'm getting up and
Right.
what's in store for me and what I can be doing. And I like to think that some of the things I'm doing are actually helpful and beneficial. Not flying a plane or playing the piano, not
Right.
specifically, but other things that are creative and can make a difference. So that was been my sort of philosophy. I'm now had my 90th birthday last January. I'm well on my way to 91. I don't feel a
91.
day
I
over
apologize.
85, but fortunately I'm in good health and I can continue this active lifestyle. Does that answer your
Absolutely.
question?
Oh my God, does it? I mean, I do have one question which I kind of interrupted you and asked, like, how old were you when you learned to fly? Were you already in your 60s or 70s?
I was in my, would have been in my 50s.
Wow. But I mean, it's funny how they say sometimes when you're in your 60s or 70s, you shouldn't be driving cars anymore. But you went
Well,
when
yeah.
way beyond that.
Yes. Well, yeah, actually, I know exactly what you mean. I've stopped driving when I got in my upper 80s. I never had an accident, never had a problem, but
Nice.
you read about these terrible accidents of people, elderly people just sort of losing their control and driving off the road. And I did not want that to happen to
No.
me. So although I'm proactive and sometimes reckless, I'm not crazy. So I would not fly a plane to this, and I stopped flying, oh, some 10 years ago. You'll be happy to hear.
Yeah. Well, no, especially with all of what we see about how our planes are going through chaos through the air system lately. But I'm not trying to dismiss the fact that you were flying, because that in itself, especially at your age at that point, what you have inspired me is understanding that your limbic system, all of the lobes of your brain have constantly been active, seeking out engagement, seeking out some form of music therapy by your piano playing, or maybe after you've given up the piano, you probably listen to different types of music that keep stimulating your mind and your thought process, especially when you mentioned earlier you engage in the solitary sport of writing books, but your brain and the creativity that is going
Yes,
on to
absolutely.
create your characters and your story and your political thriller behind it. I mean, you are finding yourself engaging, whether it's with yourself or with others, when you're getting ready to promote the book. So, what would you say is your strength in your brain powered? Is that from your experience in the foreign service, or is that just your innate curiosity you must
That's
have had since childhood?
and nothing to do with the Foreign Service specifically. I just think it was born that way. Um,
Okay.
I, I mean, as long as I've been in good health and active, I can say active. Want to be challenged all the time. I want to have things that are new, something fresh every day. Well, I can't actually manage that. That's kind of hard to do, to be totally fresh. But I try to do new things, read new book. I read a lot, and mostly not fiction. I don't read much fiction nowadays.
Right.
Read about science, and I read hard books about science. And I realize, I'm not really understanding all of this, but it gets the brain moving and gets the brain activated, and I think about what I've read, or try to think about it. And what did that mean? How does that work? And it's no one specific subtopic or another. I'm particularly interested right now. I'm reading a book about the history of human language, and
Nice.
that's a very esoteric field, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. They're talking about places that haven't been occupied in 2,000, 3,000 years, but put myself there, try to imagine what life was like in Mesopotamia or Syria or ancient India, and I'm sure that by standard scholarly standards, I'm far short, but I continue to be actively working on that to keep myself stimulated, mentally stimulated, at all times.
Yes. Basically, we're about to take our first break, but it sounds like to me that genetically, or even like as you said, you were born that way, your mind has always sought out engagement. And I guess for everyone out there listening right now, if you want to keep yourself alert, especially at the age category that Otho Eskin is in, keep yourself engaged, whether it's crossword puzzles or music or doing
He's
your
right.
favorite hobby or engaging with people or writing, learning like history of language, learning astronomy, hell, learning anything that just inspires you to keep yourself moving forward each day. All right, everybody, please stay tuned as we continue this discussion on healthy aging through creativity and reinvention right here on Frank About Health on talkradio.nyc and on all of our social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. We will be back in a few.
Are you a conscious co creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. So, in that introduction piece, I learned a lot about what was going on with Otho Eskin's brain. All of his lobes were stimulated throughout his life, his career, his desire once he retired to continue engaging and writing and creating pretty much a life well lived even beyond his years compared to what most people would say. Now, that being said, I have a little review here from Google. I'm just going to give people the understanding that healthy aging consists of maintaining physical health, mental health, and social health. And from the way that Otho had introduced himself, he has done all three and then some. In terms of physical health, most people would commit to regular exercise, maintain a healthy weight, and definitely get enough sleep. Now, protecting against injuries. Now, when you get older, some people are vulnerable to falls. At the same time, there could just be injuries that happen, um, when you have high blood pressure or you have other comorbidities. People can be susceptible to things like strokes or other kinds of dementias that can form. But a lot of times it's questionable if it's genetically based or if it's based on a comorbidity of another illness that one might have. So I would say from the masses versus the exceptions, which I believe Otho Eskin is one, you should be thinking about physical, mental, and social health all the way from the beginning, not just when you reach a certain age. No, because if you keep yourself engaged, especially with the brain, which runs the entire ship of your life, most people can have through the elasticity, the neuroplasticity of the brain, as well as the increase of neurotransmitters and any kind of activities that you want to engage. It can keep the resiliency strong in your brain, and you can definitely live a healthy life in your 90s and maybe even beyond. That being said, I want now, Otho, to discuss with you about your literary career, because from what you described, I know you created a character from what I've read in some of your works, Marco Zorn. Now, I'm understanding that that is a character you created, and I don't perceive it as an individual that is a reflection of you, but the way his maverick style in all of the novels you've created, it shows that he is not willing to live within the system that is designed. He wants to go way above and beyond. That to me is a symbol of how you lived your life. But can you give an understanding in your writings, which we'll also discuss in the later segment of the show? What would you say Marco Zorn or your other characters in the book represent from a health perspective, whether it's neurological or even energetic, or maybe some other things that I'm not catching? Oh, you have to unmute first. Okay. Okay.
Okay. I'm on, am I?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So Marco Zorn is physically very active. And he's a fictional character, not based on anybody I know. But in the novel, we know that he was when he was much younger, was in the U.S. Army and in special forces. So he was trained to in combat in a way that most people are not. Um, but Marco Zorn is very eccentric. For one thing, even though he's a police officer, he's a homicide detective. He does not like guns. He never carries a gun, and he never uses a gun. Um, he can be very violent if his life is threatened, and which it is in each of the novels, and
Right.
he gets out of serious trouble. But he does not use guns in a conventional way. And there's a complicated reason from in his past. This is not a political position. This has to do with an emotional event that happened when he was a teenager, and it changed his life a bit. And you don't know in the novel what that was, bit by bit, and then more is revealed, and in the most recent novel, Black Sun Rising, much of it is exposed as to why Marco Zorn hates guns. He doesn't object to other people carrying guns. That's not his. It's not a political position. It's
Right.
just a personal one. Um, Marco Zorn has a kind of a warped sense of humor, and that, I guess, is probably me. I think the jokes in the novel are mine, but I'm not a skilled karate or fighter, and I can't claim to be as brave as Marco Zorn is. Marco Zorn is not a hero. I should say that he's very good at what he does, but he has his flaws or his weaknesses. For one thing, he faints at the sight of blood, which is not what
Interesting.
you'd expect a homicide detective. He's afraid of heights, and both of these things come up in the novel. So he has to, like all of us, we have our weaknesses, we have our problem areas, and we learn to work around them in our career and in our life. You just adjust, and you make the best you can of any problems you have. So he manages to be very effective in investigating crimes, particularly violent crimes.
Hmm.
But he does it using his brain. He uses the wiles. He's cleverer than most people and can think faster and than most people, and only most of his opponents. So he can do without some of the conventional strengths that you'd expect in a fictional detective. That's one of the things that appealed to me about the character Marco Zorn. He's not a normal, usual. He's normal psychologically, perfectly normal, but
Yeah.
he's not typical of a hero. He's in some respects kind of anti-heroic. Uh, he's very much a maverick. He's very much his own person. He lives by his own rules, and he tends to disregard rules that other people make. Uh, for and he is not happy working with high-level bureaucrats. He's kind of basically anti-bureaucratic, and he annoys lots of people high up in the government and in other organizations. And I
Yeah.
pick all the organizations carefully. They're going to be the government, the military, the police, business, marketing, medicine. So he runs into them all and manages to irritate them all in his own way. But at the end of the day, of course, he succeeds in achieving his objectives, which is usually in preventing some horrible catastrophe from happening.
It sounds like his biggest weapon was his words and his wits and using his brain effectively.
That's right. Yes, he has to do that because that's the only way he can achieve it. And he doesn't. He doesn't care for traditional for uses of power. He develops his own sense of power, which is personality and mind, and
Yes,
and
cognitive power.
that's what gives him his success, but also preserves his keeps him alive.
Absolutely.
Because in the novels, of course, he's faced with very, very dangerous people who are ruthless and are quite prepared to destroy him on sight, which they try to do.
Wow. I mean, I think we're close to taking our second break, but I'll leave you with one question before we de delve deeper into your book and into how art might be imitating life. But how do you think Marco Zorn would succeed against the chaos that is currently going on in
Wow.
Washington?
Okay.
Would he succeed? I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, do you want me to answer that now
Well, we'll talk more
or
in
after the
depth.
break?
After the break, we'll definitely
Okay.
talk more in depth. But if you
Okay.
had one or two words to say, he would fare well, or he would eventually succeed, or he would have a struggle, what would be your choice?
Okay. I will. He would have to struggle. He would have a struggle, but he would succeed.
That's very positive to think going forward. That all being
He
said,
has to succeed.
he has
Otherwise, he
to.
wouldn't be the main character.
Exactly. All right. So, either way, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're about to take our break, even though I haven't gotten the warning yet, because there's definitely a lot to cover in section 3. But therefore, please be aware again, this story is unique because it is not in context a healthcare story, but it is showing how someone like Otho Eskin is using the power of our brains, which all of us need to learn to be more effective with going forward. That all being said, please stay tuned right here on Frank About Health on talkradio.nyc and on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. We'll be back in a few.
Misalignment within your sales team or with the client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. We were at the last section talking about Otho Eskin's fictional character, Marco Zorn, and during the commercial break, I've shown you the legacy of books that he's written with him being the predominant character, including the more recent book that is currently available on Amazon, Otho Eskin's Black Sun Rising. And we're going to go more into the book during this section of the show. But I do have a few questions about the cognitive superhero on this show, and that is you, Otho. And they actually were given to me by a friend of mine who read your book and wanted me to ask you the following three questions. Okay. First of all, what is a definitive failure that helped you change your view of the world, reinvent yourself, or grow in an unexpected way? Oh, you have to unmute yourself again.
Okay. All right.
Did you hear the question?
No, could you repeat that, please?
Sure. It must have been how it was positioned on the mic. Okay. What is a definitive failure that helped you change your view of the world, reinvent yourself, or grow in an unexpected way?
What was a failure that did that?
That may have happened in your life or career.
Okay. I don't think there was any kind of turning point. No key moment when I changed around. For 25 years or so, I was very active in the Foreign Service in various roles. I was an officer in U.S. embassies. I was a participant in numerous negotiations around the world, traveled literally around the world, and I went to many different capitals and had a thoroughly fine time, great time. I had no problems at all. But at a certain point, even the most exciting job becomes routine.
Right.
I've done this before. I know what the answers are going to be. I know how it's going to turn out. So when the time came to retire, and I decided I really did need to retire. I think I was beginning to lose some of the energy and enthusiasm I'd had for diplomatic work. And I thought, well, okay, I need to find something else that's going to be challenging. Not that diplomatic work was not challenging; it is,
Right.
particularly nowadays, I expect. But now I just felt I needed something new and fresh to challenge me each morning when I got up. Something new, something different. So that's why I looked around. Not flying a plane isn't challenging. Actually, it's actually fun and actually rather easy. But
Yeah.
writing plays, writing novels, is creative. It means you have to think through. You have to work hard to achieve what you're trying to get, which is in the case of writing a novel, an interesting, exciting story that makes some kind of sense. And in the case of plays, the same thing. You want to get people on the stage who are doing interesting things that fascinate the audience, and that's a challenge to do that. It's not self-evident how you do it. And when I was beginning, particularly as a beginner, you really need to work very hard, and then eventually working with other people to try to structure the product that you're doing. And coming back to the original question, I don't think there was any point of crisis or change. Just that one grows older, maybe wiser, maybe not, but goes more experienced and looks for new experiences. We want to be creative, and
Correct.
being
Right.
creative is you can't keep being creative doing the same thing over and over again. So it was
Yes.
more of a slow process. Nothing. No.
No
Woke
failure
up
as
one
was
morning
asked.
and I'm going to change my life. And there was never a moment like that.
I guess for the average person, I really don't know if that's even fair to say, but people who pretty much live in a rote way, even when they start to feel the boredom in the routine job that they might have, what makes them quote unquote fail is that they eventually leave the job not by their own choosing because they didn't take the signal to go and look for something creative like the way you have. So for you, it wasn't a failure. It was just experiencing routine that said, oh no, I'm too creative for this. I'm going to go find out what makes me tick. So I'm going to retire and do what I was meant to do now in my next job.
Yes, that's more or less that captures it. That's right.
Yes, exactly. So I guess if anything, you've just been living your life successfully, owning what's
Mm.
up here, which most people really need to get more awareness of and get a grasp of in. And hopefully this episode of Frank About Health will have people searching their curiosity more and really going out to what adds it invigoration into their routine lives, whatever that might be, work related or whatever else. Um, Okay, there was two other questions, but one of them also borders on the suggestion of failure, and from what I gather, you did not experience that. So the second and final question is, who's your biggest role model, and what do you think their most defining aspect of their lives um, kept them on the road to get to a position in life like you?
When the questionnaire asks about role model, I'm talking about
Did you
fictional
have a
or
role?
real life.
It could be either. It could be
Yeah.
either. It's just like whether you created the person in your own mind through your writings, or whether you actually had role models in your life, in your workplace, or within your family that inspired you to keep thinking forward and not being complacent, I guess.
Well, it's a hard question to answer. When working
Okay.
for many years in the State Department, was able to work with and for some very outstanding people, including a number of secretaries of state who deeply impressed me. So, in a general way, these are men. They were all men in those days. It dates me, doesn't it? They were some of these men were of great personal power and magnetic, and some weren't. And I was always fascinated. What is it that made these people, these figures? Many people have been highly successful in politics and in government, and some of them were total failures, in my opinion. But some of them were outstanding, and I was always been interested, sort of intellectually, in what is it that made them so personally magnetic and powerful, so that if you're in a room with them and they're speaking, you listen to them and you pay attention to what they're saying. Some of them were just plain fraud. Some of them were just empty windbags. And they also got high up in the government. And that's going to be true in any organization. People are often promoted beyond their capacity. But I was impressed by some of the people or many of the people I've worked with. Very unimpressed with many of the others. So that was in a vague way, but I don't, in writing the novel, I didn't base it on in Marco Zorn, on any of those people. Some of the secondary characters, which include both men and women, I did try to capture that magnetic, charismatic character that really outstanding men and women have, and tried to capture a little bit of that in their description. But Marcos himself is not. He's not a politician. He's not magnetic and he or charismatic. He's very, very strong and tough, but not like a powerful person in government or business. So I didn't base him on any real person. I based him on purely personal fantasy.
Okay, no, I mean, if anything, I can say from my own experience with neuropsychology, and I've been living my life with epilepsy, seizure free for 20 years now. But the thing is that I have been told at times, depending on my venue, that I can be charismatic. To me, that means that I'm effectively using my self awareness and I'm using my cognitive skills that I know that I have to tap into in certain moments. Like right now, I'm tapping into all of my reasoning and logic to make sure that this show is as professional as it can be, especially to tell your story. So I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong based on your experience, that people who are charismatic, whether men or women, are very effective at using their brain when needed, when called for, and communicating effectively, whatever their thoughts are, versus, as you mentioned, the windbags who basically use the gift of gab to get to where they need to go. But we all know there's a cap on that. While when you continue to reinforce your own brain matter, to move through life in your career and you show the charisma to others, they can be role models to anyone because they have a longevity, they have a path that they're following, whether it's self-focused or whether they've been educated into how to lead towards their goals. But would it be safe to say that charisma is based on self-awareness?
Yes, I think so, very much so. And without self-awareness, charisma won't work at all. You have to know, you have to be well-centered.
Yes,
If
exactly.
you don't know your own personality, you can't influence others.
Beautifully said. It's also a perfect segue to discuss this book. Now, Black Sun Rising, everybody, is available on Amazon.com below $20 or only 99 cents if you download it. But it's also available on othoeskin.com, which is his website. And you can find out more information about all of his novels. We're not going to go too much into the novel because it's not a healthcare story. But I can honestly say, since there is a picture of the White House on the cover, that as you read it, it mirrors what actually is going on currently in our society. And while this is a healthcare focus, I'm not going to talk about all the disruptions we're seeing except the big, beautiful bill, and which, of course, was a topic when I featured Dr. Marshall Runge on Frank About Health a few months ago when we were talking about his book, The Great Healthcare Disruption. So, what would you say, Otho, is the current state of mind in Washington that shows similar to what you write about here? If there's a way you can say this book mirrors how we can learn from it and be able to diffuse the noise versus the truth, what would be your commentary?
Well, I'd like to think that people can learn from it. If you're to answer your first question, it's like here in Washington for the people who are active in government or related or in the military or intelligence. I think the general answer is confusion. I think people are completely uncertain. And I'm not speaking about anybody. I'm not certainly not speaking about any high-level administration officials because I don't know any. I've known them in other administrations, but nobody in this administration. So I'm not trying to capture their thinking.
Right,
But
right,
talking about the lower levels, which is, you're your bureaucrat, your guy on the street, the cop on the corner, all those people in the military. I think even if they don't say so, I think they're bewildered. They don't know what's going on. They don't know from one day to the other what's going to happen, and it makes well, regardless of their politics, conservative, liberal, progressive, whatever, makes their planning very, very difficult. I don't know. I would guess that most people who have responsible jobs don't know where they stand in
hmm
Washington and hope this is all going to settle down and they'll find out. I would hate to be a small businessman right now in anywhere in this country trying to plan 2 or 3 years from now, which is what businessmen have to do, and trying to figure out what the economic and trade policies are going to be because they don't know. And
right.
if you're in the military, if I was a young officer aiming to make a career in the military, and I'd be wondering, well, am I going to end up on the streets of Washington cleaning trash off the street, or am I going to be developing new weapon systems? And I think if I suspect that most young officers and most young bureaucrats are going to be at a loss. There may be in a year or two they won't be, but right now confusion and uncertainty is the keynote.
Mm. So while you're in the healthcare space, for example, especially with all the threats of changes affecting all of us in 2026 and beyond, would you say that it is best for all of us to take the spirit that you have done in your life and really be researching, writing plans, budgeting, scoping out an entrepreneurial nature of how to keep everything protected from within your own healthcare system and priorities? I
Yeah.
mean, we cannot depend on the media or on our programs, which could be at a loss in the near future. So it tells me that everything has to almost be entrepreneurial, like you have to create your own ecosystem.
Yes. Well, I'm no expert on healthcare, but as a private citizen, I'm absolutely appalled at what's going on. I mean, I'm one of those people which will actually believe in expertise. If somebody's been trained and has experience in a field and they know the field well, if they express opinions and have plans, you listen to them. They may be wrong. They may make a mistake. That happens in every field. But when you see expert after expert being ignored and thrown out and fired, and you wonder who's going to replace them. Who are the people? I'm not talking about the substance of their views because I can't. I'm obviously not qualified to say, but I do feel strongly that if you deny science, if you deny expertise, if you deny experience, you're asking for trouble. And it seems to me that that's what's happening right now. People who know their business. I'm talking about the health business, but it's also true in military, intelligence, law enforcement. If you know what you're doing and then you get fired and the person who replaces you is completely uninformed, that's a invitation for trouble.
Mm. We have to take our final break. I went a little over because I thought it was important you make your points across for all of us to really engage with our own gray matter to make sure we get through the next 2 or 3 years or whatever we're about to face. But then when we come back, we want to have some closing thoughts and then again also promote where other people can find you, whether it's on your social media
Okay.
or and so forth and so on. So sorry for the delay, Jesse, but we just had to get that part through. All right, we'll be back in a few. On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, a.k.a. the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Navtej Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers!
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. This actual segment is probably going to be 5 minutes at length. It was just very important that during the last section, we really featured not just Otho Eskin's work, especially the book Black Sun Rising, now available on Amazon and on his website, but we'll also get an echo or a mirror of how to own your own cognitive and neurological style so that we can get through all the chaos, disruption, and, as he said earlier, confusion that we see every day, especially in healthcare. Now, of course, there'll be more episodes of Frank About Health covering disruption, so I'll always be a resource to provide solutions for whatever your healthcare questions or situations might be, as I have been in the past as well. But I want everyone to know that Otho Eskin represents a model of how not to let the system or not to let boredom take over your own life as you are aging, as we all are aging. Now, I have talked in the past about Alzheimer's and dementia and side effects of medications that cause it and so forth and so on, but that doesn't have to be the be all end all. While you are still trying to eat nutritious foods in check with your dementia issues, you also have to remember to continue to engage, continue to learn, continue to do puzzles, continue to stimulate yourself so that way you can be able to keep the neuroplasticity alive and live as the highest quality of life that you can, no matter what your age is. Now, not everybody is going to do that, but I hope that today's episode of Frank About Health featuring Otho Eskin has inspired you to start finding ways to do that. I definitely say get his books because, if anything, just reading them and getting involved in the thriller behind um, um, oh my God, your character's name. I keep confusing it. Um, Marco Zorn. There you go. He is a maverick who uses his brain to fight crime, and that in itself should be an inspiration unto you guys. Otho, do you have any closing thoughts that you could provide the listeners and viewers about how to keep themselves vigilant while they are aging, how they're living life, growing older?
Yes, well, we all age. There's nothing we can do about that, but
Right.
you could find things that excite you. Find things that are uh, challenging to you. Doesn't have to be playing the piano, or, as I did, or flying a plane, or writing plays. It could be none of the, obviously. It could be something as simple as gardening, or as complicated as trying to work out mathematical puzzles. I do crossword puzzles. I have to say, I'm not very good at crossword puzzles, but I'm always looking for something that's going to be challenging, something that's not going to be just passive entertainment. And the way to do that, if there's no easy answer to that, but is finding something that excites you. And if you do something and then after a while it becomes routine, find something else. And
Exactly.
that's all I can say.
So honing in on your creativity to get you from one position to the next, but then also continuing to reinvent yourself going forward. That is the constant.
Absolutely. There you go.
Awesome. Uh, I have so many other questions, so I definitely will, give you a call after the show so we can talk about them.
Please
And
do.
I do feel that I want to have you come back on Frank About Health in another maybe 4 to 6 weeks. We'll just figure that out.
Okay, I'd be delighted.
That would be wonderful. Everyone, please remember, othoeskin.com is his website. You'll find all about his history, his bio, his books, his plays. You'll even find out other information about his career and pretty much any discussion about um, I forgot his name, Marco Zorn. There you go. Um, that all being said, we're about 3 minutes to ending. So, how can people reach out to you? I know you have an Instagram handle, but are you
Well,
on LinkedIn as well?
if you can go to my homepage at othoeskin.com, you get a lot of information. Then you can communicate directly with that email address. So if you have questions.
Okay, awesome. Do you have any other views on healthcare itself besides aging or neuroplasticity?
No, other than the fact that I'm scared to death.
As we all are, quite frankly. All right. That all being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to end the show. Stay tuned on talkradio.nyc at 6 p.m. for Serving Up Success with a Splash with Bruce Kramer and Angie Snowball. And then at 7 p.m., you will find Making Seamless Sales. And then I will be here next week with another episode of Frank About Health. I thank all of you for listening to this unique, innovative episode, considering that I'm taking an author that has nothing to do with healthcare, but yet giving us all a healthcare lesson on cognitive thinking and cognitive style and healthy aging. Thank you, Jesse, behind the scenes, for engineering the show as usual. And again, Otho, thank you for being here, and I look forward to talking to you shortly.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
All right. See you all next week, everybody.